Hey friends, it is Gwen here from Olive & Oak, and I'm going to show you what is inside of our July Crafters Crate box. So when you open this package up, you're going to have a nice photo of the projects we're going to be making, and then a little note about them, as well as, if you're watching this, you probably found the video, but a QR code to find this video, and a reminder of what your discount code is for any of our other kits or workshops. So if you are shopping with us outside of your subscription box, you get a discount. We want to say thank you. But inside of the box, let's take a little peek. We have a big old bag of fluffing stuff. I always call it that, but it is polyfill, and we're going to be using that to create some adorable fabric pumpkins. No sew, because I am not a seamstress. You're going to have our main project piece, which is going to be this super cute Scarecrow, and I'm going to walk you guys through how to paint him, how to add fun details, and then some parts that you can personalize how you want him to look. You're also going to have some embellishment pieces. You're going to have a bundle of raffia, some jute, some little rubber bands that are on the jute, and you are going to use these as part of your project, so make sure you save these. And then a little strip of fall ribbon that's got some cute leaves and a little bit of sparkle to it. You're also going to find some fresh sponges that we're going to use for creating our project, a strip of our accent colors for this month. We've got orange, yellow, navy green, olive green. I'm making up colors now, guys. Olive green, there's a light blue, a denim blue, and then the very last one we have on here is, it's called In the Buff, but it's like a peachy color that we're going to use for our Scarecrow's face. You're also going to have a little bundle of fabric pieces, which is what we're going to use to create our our fabric pumpkins. So we've got some different print fabrics, and then you're going to have two small pieces too that we're going to use to create a little embellishment for our Scarecrow's hat. So we're going to get into it. Let me show you guys how to create this project and make something super cute that you can put on your mantle for fall. All right, so let's get into creating our fabric pumpkins. For this part, you're going to want your two bigger pieces of fabric in the box, your wrap of jute, and you'll notice that there's these little black rubber bands that are around those. We're going to use those, so don't toss them. Your bag of fluffin' stuff. You will want to grab a glue gun unless you want to sew these. I am not a seamstress, and a pair of scissors. So if you want to make more of these with other fabrics, my general rule of thumb is I make the pieces of fabric about twice as long as they are tall. So it's a 1-to-2 ratio for my length there, and they do not have to be perfect. I've used everything from old flannel sleeves to fun fabrics like these to make them. But let's go ahead and get one put together. So, and the other thing too is you can make these bigger or smaller. If you want your pumpkins to be two different sizes, you can trim some of the material off to make a smaller pumpkin to go with it as well. But I'm gonna start with my patchwork piece. Don't mind my little trim down there at the bottom, it's gonna disappear. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn my fabric face side up, and I'm gonna take just a bead of hot glue. Let's see if this thing's warm enough yet. It is not. We're gonna try that again. We gotta break out the big battery. So I'm gonna give my hot glue gun just a moment to heat up, but in the meantime, I will grab my little loops here. Like I said, these rubber bands you're going to use, you should have 4 of them, so we're gonna set them aside for right now. And with your pieces of jute, you should have 11. So let me open these up, separate them all. So I'm gonna start by grabbing 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Get just 5 of them. 5 of them. And what you're gonna do is tie just a big knot on one end, holding all of them together. So let me combine them all, string them out. So I've got my end like this. I'm gonna take all of these, I'm gonna wrap it around my fingers, and then tuck that knot, or the tail in there rather, to make a big knot just somewhere close to the end. So I've got my big knot like that. If you want to, you can tie a double knot. One of them is gonna be just fine though. You're gonna take 5 more of your strings and do the same thing with the other set. So again, I've got 5. I'm gonna wrap them, tuck the tail up in there, and then tie my knot down. These are not super particular in the way that we make these, but they do make our pumpkin come together. All right, so what we're gonna do with our hot glue is we're gonna run a bead of it. Mind you, my fabric is face side up. I'm gonna run a bead of it along this side so that I can make essentially a tube. Again, if you are someone who likes to sew, you are more than welcome to sew this. I am not a seamstress by any means. Take my bead of hot glue just along that end. Press this down. Just gonna push that so that it stays nice and flat. On the end that you want to be your bottom, if you're particular on either side of it, you're going to take your newly tied set of 5 strings and we're gonna fish it down into the tube, so I'm inside now, and pull it to where that knot is just on the other side of your fabric. This is where the rubber bands come into place too. We're gonna take this bottom section here with our knot over on that end, and we're just gonna gather this up. I kind of do almost like a little bit of an accordion fold when I put it together, but there's really no wrong way to do this. We'll tie this all together like that, where we've got sort of like a little section of it all bundled together. And I'm gonna take my rubber band and I'm just gonna wrap it around that a couple of times to secure the end of my fabric all together in that little shape. And then I'm gonna take my jute from this side and I'm just gonna pull it so that my knot comes down right where that rubber band meets it. Oh, it's nice and stuck in there. If I tried really hard, I'm sure I could probably pull it out, but I'm not gonna try that hard. Now we're gonna turn our fabric inside out. I'm just gonna kind of pull it and fluff it around. So I've got all my fabric pulled out. And now I have this weird little bag with some strings down at the bottom of it. What we're gonna do is we're gonna stuff this little bag. So I'm gonna break into my stuffing real quick. I'll split this about in half. I may not need all of it. And I'm gonna take little sections of this. Now, if you've ever stuffed something, you know that the stuffing comes really, really compact. And so I kind of tear mine apart so that it has some more fluff to it. These aren't gonna be pillows. They're not gonna be stuffed animals that babies are gonna be loving on. So I'm not worried about it being so thick that it's, you know, a hard little pumpkin, but I still want it to be fluffy. So I'm gonna kind of defluff some of this in my hands. I'm just kind of tearing it a little bit. There we go. And I'm gonna put all of that down into my little pumpkin piece and just kind of spread it around a little bit. So I've got my little stuffed pumpkin. Now I'm gonna take another one of those rubber bands and make a second go. Now this is where I'm gonna kind of shove my fluff down into there. Again, I'm gonna gather, and this is how I usually do it on the top side. I sort of pinch 2 pieces together and I work my way around, just kind of pulling more of the fabric and pinching it between my finger and my thumb so that it kind of gathers a little bit evenly. Do you have to do it this way? No, but it works for me. All right, so now that I've got this top section, I'm gonna do the same as I did on the bottom and make a little ponytail out of it. I'm gonna wrap my rubber band a few times around. I did about 3 times around to make the little top of my piece. Now I've got this little ball with strings hanging down. And this is how I make my little pieces to my pumpkin. So I'll take 1 string at a time and I'm gonna pull it up to the top. This is sort of the base for my stem. I'm gonna pull it up to the top and I'm gonna wrap it around the stem. So I've got it here, coming up to the top. I'm gonna wrap it around the stem and back to itself. And then I hold on to the stem piece. I kind of pull. Let me see if I can get some good grip on this. Pull just a little bit. See how it scrunches up my pumpkin piece a little? I pull, and then what I do is this string right here, this is still the string I pulled up, I tuck it underneath there and kind of pull it to where it's tight up to the top of my pumpkin string. And that jute does grab just enough, and again, these don't have to be perfect, does grab just enough where it just kind of sits and keeps this kind of ruffled piece to it. Now I'll go and take another string and pick another spot. I usually work kind of the 3 corners, pulling it up from the bottom, around, like this, around my stem. Give it a little tug so that it kind of tightens up that side, and tuck it up underneath that strand, making kind of like a little knot, but it's not anything crazy. You don't have to double knot this or anything. It's just enough to hold it. Grab another string, split this one over this way. So I've got 2 of the strings right here. I'm gonna take this one and split kind of this top section. Again, I pull it from the bottom. And now what I kind of do is just move these strings around, get them out of my way. I pull this tight again on that side. Tuck this up under there. And grab my last 2 and do the same thing. Kind of pull them around a little bit, separate out my sections, this one around. And it doesn't matter, it can go under or over these strings. They're all gonna get bound together in a minute anyway. Grab my string though, I'm gonna pull this little section, tuck my string underneath, and pull, and then pull my string over just a little this way, and then I've got my last string. It's gonna split this section here. Pull it, and tuck my last string. So now my little, what was an orb, has very much like those little pumpkin shape to it, but I've still got these weird stringy, hangy pieces up here. Now, there's a couple of ways you can finish these off. One way is to just kind of take them all together and tie a big bow. Kind of knot them like this. Tuck it under. Oops. Kind of get my tails down there. You tie a big bow like that and be done with it, and that's pretty stinking cute. And you'll have this little stem piece that is just some of the fabric that's chunked up there. The other option, I mean, I guess there's tons of ways you can do this. This is how I've done it. The other option is I take all my strings kind of together and I sort of twist them. And I do it kind of as I go. I don't try to twist the whole set, but twist them, and we'll add a little dot of hot glue, and we're gonna wrap them around the top piece of our fabric piece that's sticking out. So I'm gonna put a little bit of hot glue right there. I'm gonna hold on to my stem, and I'm just gonna kind of twist and tuck as I go. And it's easier to show in person than it is on a camera, but we're gonna make this work. Put another little dot of hot glue. I'm gonna twist my pieces, and I'm just gonna work my way up this little fabric section. Another little dot of glue over here. Twist and tuck. And I'm gonna do that up my entire stem, and then when I get to the top, it's a little different. We sort of just put glue on there and stick it down until it stays stuck. Just tuck. Sometimes you gotta let the glue set just a second or it lets go. But you can kind of see it's forming sort of a little brown stem up there at the top. Twist and stick, and be careful not to get the hot glue all over your fingers because it burns a little bit. Now that I'm at the top of my section, this little piece of excess fabric that's hanging out, I'm just gonna snip it off. So I've got kind of this flat top to work with, and I'm gonna twist, and when I get to the very tippy top, instead of going higher, I'm just gonna kind of twist it into itself and make a little coil right at the top. So let me get that on there and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Another dot of glue in there. Had a little part where the side where it wasn't wanting to stick together real well, so I put another dot of glue just between two of the rows to kind of hold it in place. Give that just a second to cool off so it stays stuck. All right, now we'll take our last little coils. I'm gonna put glue along the top section here. And then twist and kind of wrap it into itself. And while I'm holding it to dry, I'm gonna have these little weird sticky uppies. We'll clip those off in just a second. All right, so I'm gonna snip these little weird strings off of here. And I might need just a little bit more glue underneath it to hold it all together. This is where one of those little silicone thimbles comes into play. If you have one handy, you can totally put that up on here and help hold it all in place. But I'm just gonna hold this in its little spot for a minute. Let all of that glue cool back down and harden. I've got some little random strings that I'll snip off. take my scissors and snip out these little random strings that are hanging out. But otherwise, that is my little fabric pumpkin. I really like this patchwork print because it just adds so many different colors to it. But like I said, I've used everything from old linens that we weren't using anymore to flannel shirts. I cut the sleeves off of them, and actually kind of like this one. I cut the sleeves off of them and I've made flannel ones. I've made so many of these over the years. I did get to a point to where we made about 300 of them for a home decor box, but we did finished ones, and I said I would never make another one. But with you guys making them, it's a little bit more fun. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do the exact same thing with my plaid fabric. Again, if you wanted to make 2 different size pumpkins, you could easily trim some of this down. So maybe I'll try some of that. Let's trim just a little bit of this off. So like I said, my goal is to make it about twice as wide as it is long, but it does not have to be perfect. So let's take, I don't know, about 1.5 inches off of this piece. I'll take some length off of this side too. I've tried making really tall ones before and they just kind of flop over to the side, so I really do like this shape for them. Yeah, come off of there. All right, so we're gonna say this is our size for this one. I'm gonna do the same thing though. Get my extra little stringies out of here. I'm going to put my bead of glue along one side. Of course, my glue stick ran out. You know, if it's not the battery, it's the glue stick, right? Something's got to go wrong. Anyway, we're going to put our bead of glue down this side of the fabric. Press this down. Get some of these extra stringies out of here. Let that cool for just a sec. Now the rest of this process is exactly the same as the pumpkin we made earlier. We're going to flip it inside out, add our stuffing after we fluff it up. I didn't need quite as much stuffing this time, it's a little bit smaller. Close up our bags, and then we're going to pull our strings up to the top the exact same way we did last time. So I'm going to speed this part of the process up just a little bit. Okay, how stinking cute is this little tiny guy? We're going to do the same thing with our stem here. Although I think I might take, just because of how little it is, I might take just 3 of the strings and leave 2 of them hanging out that I can tie a bow with. So I'm gonna twist just 3 of the strings. I'll tuck these ones down here. And I'm gonna get them glued up around my stem piece. And I'm gonna put that glue right there on the tippity top part. Kind of cover all. And then wrap it all in. All right, we'll hold this guy still for just a second so that that glue can set up. Feels pretty solid. Just a little bit on here. All right, I've got some weird strings hanging out. I'm gonna snip those real quick. And I'm gonna take those last 2 strings that I still had hanging out and I'm gonna tie them into a little bow. I pick kind of the fluffiest side. I think I like this side of my pumpkin the most, so I'm gonna tie my bow over into this direction, sort of. I can take some of these little tails and snip some of them off because that's a lot of string. Have a little pumpkin bow like that. Now it's got a little bow, and my pumpkins have a nice little pair of friends that I can display with my cute little scarecrow. All right, so I've got all my goodies, the stuff from my maker bag. Of course, my project here, my brushes are all laid out. All right, so let's kind of take a peek at our scarecrow and what all the pieces for him go together. So we've got the brim of his hat. You're gonna have this circle and these 2 ovals. All that's gonna do is when we're ready for it, it's gonna help create some space between our scarecrow and the brim of his hat because we're gonna put some little accessories up in there. So we're gonna set these little pieces aside. We've got, so his brim will just kind of set right there for now. We've got this little tag piece that says fall on it, this fun little crow, because of course a crow's got to be hanging out with our scarecrow, a little button embellishment. His little nose is so stinking cute. Let's put his brim to the side for a moment. baseball tag. His little eyes do pop out. If they don't pop immediately as soon as you pick them up, just go ahead and push them a little bit and they'll pop right out. So you can paint those separately, and then we'll set them back in when we're all done. But the other part I want to show you guys is this is kind of his background piece, everything will attach to this. But you'll have this little funky triangle type thing. And all that's going to do is once we're all done with him, this triangle piece is going to slide into there. You can glue it in, or you can leave it as just a piece you can take in and out. But it's essentially going to make him stand up. So that'll be helpful. But this piece we're going to set aside for right now because we don't need them right at the moment. All right, so we're gonna start with our Scarecrow piece. Now it's up to you. There's a bunch of different colors on here. You of course can make him whatever color makes your heart happy. Same with your bird, your buttons, all your accessories. But I am going to give him kind of a cream face, some orange in his nose, and then we're gonna kind of play around with some different parts. I am going to be using some of the paints that come in your maker bag as well. So we've got the black, white, and the stain, and then we'll get into accessories. So I am going to start with his little face. I'm going to use one of the makeup wedges that's in your kit. And I'm going to open up this kind of, I don't know, peachy, fleshy type color. It's actually called In the Buff, which I think is hilarious. And I'm just going to kind of press my sponge down into it to get a little bit on the end. I'm going to wipe some of my excess off. And I'm going to fill in this whole area kind of about halfway on his brim down. His brim is going to get covered, so I'm not worried about having it perfect. But I do want to make sure that I get all of this on here. Now when I do this, especially because of his little face details, I'm tapping very, very lightly with my paint, or with my sponge rather, so that it doesn't fill all those cracks in. Now if for some reason you do get too much paint down in there, you can actually use your weeding tool that was in your maker bag, or a toothpick, a dental pick, really anything like that to kind of dig the paint back out of there. But usually it's a little bit easier if we try to just do a light tapping on there and don't get it too filled in to start off with. But again, everything can easily be fixed. If you really wanted to, you could also go back over these with a paint pen. I do not have the most steady hand, which is why I don't do fine painting, so I will not be doing that. But you guys, of course, are welcome to make him your own, add whatever little details you want to this adorable little guy. I meant to grab, and I forgot to, I have a blush that I've gotten that is definitely not my shade, and I think once I'm all done with him, I'm going to take a little bit of the blush and just kind of rub it over the cheeks of his face just to give him a little character. But I did forget to grab my blush, so if you see a picture where it looks like he's blushing, it's because I finally remembered to grab it. All right, I'm going to set his brim on here just to make sure I got all the areas I needed covered, and it does look like I did. So I'm going to put this back aside and just give him a couple little extra taps here and there, any of the spots where he looks a little light. All right, so we're going to let that part dry. Now I'm going to close this up too before I forget to close it later. And then you've got all these different colors here you can choose to use for his hat. That's the part I'm going to paint next. So we've got almost like a denim-y blue. This is a lighter blue, this olive green, a yellow, and then the orange as well. I want him to match my little pumpkins, so I kind of used those are the colors we packed along with it, or the colors that are in there. So I'm really thinking about doing his hat in either the olive green or the denim blue. I think I'm going to go with the green. So I'm going to take my olive green and I'm going to coat his whole hat in it. I'm going to do the brim and the top, but I'll start with the brim. Now for this part, I'm going to use my foam brush. I'm just going to kind of dip the corner in there to get some of the paint. And I'm just going to kind of dust that color on there. This part, I'm not going to worry about getting it perfect coated because I'm going to do a little bit of distressing on him too. This almost reminds me of like a boomerang. All right, there's the brim of his hat. I'll set that one aside. Now I'm going to do the top of his hat. I'm going to paint right over these lines for the bird because it's going to be easy to figure out where it sets back into. And quite frankly, I'll probably still be able to see him even once I do paint. And again, I'm just making sure that I bring my paint at least part of the way down to where his brim is because that part's going to get covered. All right, we're gonna let his little hat piece dry, and I'm gonna go into painting some of the little accessories. I'm gonna do the bird in black, and then I'll come back in and give him a little eye, and I'll leave the tip of this so that I can give him a little yellow beak. I'm gonna paint his little nose orange, and then his little button piece. I think I'm actually gonna use the stain and give him a little wooden button. All right, so all of my little pieces are base coated. Now we're gonna get into the fun little details. So we'll start with this fall tag, which I just did a really light coat of stain on there, and you could leave it exactly like this. If you wanted to fill those letters in, you could use something like a paint pen, or use either the blue pointy brush, or if you want really, really fine details, you come back in with the ninja brush and fill these little letters back in. I think I had planned on filling them in, but I sort of like them without the fill. So we'll see. We might come back to that. But lots of the other pieces I think would be so cute. Like his little eyes, a little bit of expressive in his little eyes. All I'm gonna do is take my little itty bitty ninja brush. I didn't even focus on it. This brush, with just a tiny bit of white, and make just a little curve on it. I'm not even gonna pour any of it out because I need such a small amount. I'm gonna cheat and just flip my cap over. Hold these little guys. Now, something else I always tell people to do if you're nervous about little lines and stuff is to go ahead and practice on a piece of paper or just anything really to determine how much pressure to put down when you're going to paint something like this. So let's see. Just a little tiny swoop like that. Now let's see if I can match it on my second one. I think that's the trickiest part. But I also tell everybody that paint covers dry paint. So if you ever have something where you're like, I don't like that, let it dry for a minute, paint right back over it. Not quite a perfect match, but you know what? They're gonna be cute. They're gonna be my guy's little eyes that I'll put down into his spot in just a little bit, but I'll let those dry first, because if not, I guarantee I will mess them up. For my little crow, I'm gonna paint his eye back in white too. If making a perfect little circle with a paintbrush like this makes you nervous, something else you can do is use the back end of your paintbrush, tap it down into some paint, and again, you can practice to see, is that gonna be a big enough circle? Put it down on a piece of paper or something else just to determine if it's gonna be the size you need, and play around with that. But I'm gonna do mine with my little brush. Let me set him up here into frame a little bit so you guys can see him. But I'm just gonna kind of drag the paint around and get it all filled in. There we go. Let his little piece dry like that. I'll let that part dry, and I'm probably gonna give him a little tiny black dot in the very center of that too, but we'll let that part dry first. Something else, I want to add some little details to his nose, which is going to go right there in the middle of his face. But I think what I'll do on this one is kind of do a little swoop along this side. And then I think kind of, I don't know, I feel like scarecrows are known to have sort of those little like stitch marks on them. So we're going to give him some little stitchy marks too. And hold this little nose piece down. A little bit more paint than what I was going for. Let it kind of swoop right there, and then I'm going to take my brush and just give him some little stitchy lines like that. It looks way more complicated than it is, I promise. So we'll let that one dry. Let's see, we got his eyes already. We've got his little crow in progress. We're gonna do some stuff to him too though. His little button, I don't know, a little wooden button's pretty good to go exactly as it sits. So I think we're gonna leave that part alone, but let's come over here, take a peek at his hat and his face. So I'm picturing his little eyes in there. I think if we give him some little sets of dots right here next to his eyes, they'll kind of look like little tiny freckles. I'm gonna set that aside. Now this part I'm not gonna trust myself to get nice little dots, so I'm gonna shake my white paint up real quick. There we go. And I'm gonna use the back side of my little pointy brush to make perfect little circles, which is why my brush always has little spots on the end of it. but just right about here. We'll do 1, 2, 3. I'm going to dip my brush again so I've got a nice amount for a good circle. 1, 2, 3. Just little tiny spots next to his little eyes. Those will be cute. And then I might add just a couple little dots right over here in this corner of his nose. 1, 2, 3. That'll be his little nose. All right, so we'll let that part dry. But put my cap back on my white for just a minute. I want to add a little bit of detailing and distressing to his hat because this poor little guy has been out trying to scare off the crows that he's clearly not scaring off. Get his eyes out of the way so I don't get any smoosh on them and get him into frame right there. So I'm going to set that brush down. I'm going to take my chip brush, the kind of bristly, hard bristle type one. I'm going to get just a little bit of paint on the end of this, and we're going to do almost like a crosshatch, where I'm going to make just straight up and down strokes like this, going in one direction, and then we'll see. My plan is to come back over it just real lightly like that too. Now it's up to you. The colors you choose to do this in might be dependent on what color, what color you make his hat. I think I'm gonna go darker with this part, and I think I'm actually gonna use some of my black for his little crosshairs. So set this down. I'm gonna take my brush, I'm gonna get paint. I am just using the cap too because I don't want very much paint on my brush. So I'm just kind of stippling it into there, and even this I'm gonna offload. I've got a napkin over here. I'm just gonna tap it on the napkin until I have very little paint on the end of my brush because I don't want it to be a really good solid stroke. I just want a little bit of light. So again, we're gonna go up and then we're gonna go across, but I'm not wanting to like paint and swish and swash because I just want kind of like stripes almost. And maybe I offloaded a little heavier than what I should have. I'm always nervous about having too much paint on my brush for this because this is a less is more kind of thing, but there is a point where not enough is not enough. There we go. So I'm kind of following the natural curve of his hat as I do this part. I'm going to turn my brush a little bit sideways like this to kind of get some more sections in there. So they're subtle, but there's just a little bit going on there. And then I'm going to go again with the curve of his hat. I think I'm going to have to load a little bit more paint on there to do this part. It's easy to add paint. It's harder to take it off. Not impossible, just harder. Let's go across here, across here, across here. And I'm going to drag it back the other way too, just in case it catches some of the bristles differently. Now it's going to be his little this part of his distressed hat. It's really light. It's not meant to be super bold, but I like it. So I'm going to set that part aside, and we're going to do the same with the background of his hat. I'm going to reload some of my paint here, tap some of it off. And this one, since this would be kind of the top of his hat, I'm not going to worry so much about angles. I'm just going to kind of go straight, mostly straight up and down. And same thing, I'm going to kind of come back against it so that if it catches more of the other side of the bristles, it can do that too. Some of the spots I'm going to darken just a little bit more. Make sure we go all the way to the end of his hat. Sorry guys. And then I'm going to go across it as well. Get a little bit more paint on my brush. And we're going to go crosshairs. There's a big wide brush stroke, and that's okay. All right, so we've got some cool texture in his little hat, but we are not done. So I'm going to take my brush. I am going to rinse this one off. Let that one soak for just a minute. And I'm gonna take, let's see, do I wanna use this one? Nope, I don't trust myself. We're gonna use the Ninja brush. I'm gonna come back in with the Ninja brush and I'm gonna give him just kind of like a little, I don't know, like a little hashtag up there in the corner. Something else I think would be really cute would be to take a scrap piece of this fabric and then give yourself a little square to put up there. I do not have pinking shears with me, otherwise that would be really cute to put a piece of his scrappy fabric up there as a patch. I think that'd be adorable. But I'm gonna cheat and just use my little Ninja brush and I'm gonna paint just a little hashtaggy type dealio up there, something like that, and then maybe one more kind of down here on the brim of his hat. There we go. So he's got two little embellishments on his hat already. But still, we are not done. All right, let me put this part away for right now though. So his little setup is ready. His nose is gonna go down here. I think I wanna add just a little bit of smudge to his nose. And what we're gonna do that with is I'm gonna take a little bit of our stain on just the end. This is actually the sponge that I used for his face. I'm gonna snip just a little off the end. That gives me a nice fresh sponge to work with. I'm gonna take a little bit of the stain on the end of our sponge. And just along the outside edge, we're just gonna kind of tap some of that on there. It's gonna be real subtle. And I may end up needing to add a little bit heavier color to really get what I'm going for. Because this is our light stain color. That didn't quite add as much as I wanted it to. All right, I lied. We're gonna use a little bit of black. So now I've got some black on there too. It's kind of mixed with the stain, so it's not super, super bold. This is perfect. And I'm just kind of going around the edges of his little nose, and I'm just tapping real, real lightly, so it's only getting a little bit of color, which is all we want. But it just kind of roughs up his nose a little. And that'll set down into there. Oh, I like that. All right, that's good, that's good. I feel like I need to do the same to his face, though. Outside edge of his face is gonna need a little bit of this distressing too. Take some down here on the edge. Just a little bit. There we go. Gives him just a little tiny bit of character. I still think that blush would look really cute there, but okay. I am done painting. I lied. One more spot. I need a little bit of, a little tiny dot in his eye. There we go. Okay, now I'm done painting. Now it's all embellishments and assembly. All right, so like I mentioned, it is time to get into embellishments and assembly. We are gonna take that bundle of raffia that you've got in your package, and we're just gonna split it open real quick. Get that little piece of yarn off of there. You don't have to save the yarn, by the way. So we're gonna toss that aside. I'm gonna get my glue gun turned back on, maybe, and heating up. And what we're gonna do is give our Scarecrow some cool little hair pieces. So I'm gonna take just a few pieces of our raffia here, tear some of it out, and these pieces are way longer than what you need. So we're gonna tear them up, we're gonna kind of shred them and make them do what we want them to. So I'm gonna take a little bundle of it like this, and I'm just kind of accordion folding some of it. Again, his little hair pieces should not be perfect by any means. But I took one little strip of it, I accordion folded it, and I'm gonna kind of pinch it up at the top, but I'm gonna snip these bottom pieces so that they're individual strands now. She's got these little pieces hanging out. And, well, actually I've got this skinny piece that I'm just gonna kind of wrap around this top piece. it didn't need to be there, but now I've got kind of like this little bundle. So I'm gonna envision it kind of tucked in right there. So this is what those spacer pieces, these little circles and stuff are gonna be, so we have room to glue these. But as you go, if you want, you can kind of envision where all these little bits and pieces are gonna sit. So I think if I put kind of 2 bundles on either side of his eyes, I think we'll be in good shape. So this is where I'm gonna kind of pinch this piece and hold it in place. And I'm not gonna worry about trimming him until I've got all my pieces attached. But I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna put a little dot of hot glue right here. I'm gonna press my little bundle down into it and put a little dot over top of it too to kind of hold all those pieces in place. Let it dry for just a second. And then if this part becomes too bulky, I can always come back in and give him a little haircut. But I think we're gonna be just fine. So he's got one little bundle right there. Let's go ahead and grab another strand, and same thing, we're gonna kind of accordion fold it back and forth, or paper fan fold, I guess. Back and forth. Gonna pinch this little top section, and I don't have a little skinny piece that's playing nice, so I'm just gonna twist it to kind of hold it in place. And that one I think is gonna go right there. But same ideas, I'm gonna trim those so they're little individuals, and I'm gonna glue it right about there, I think. Another dot of hot glue right there. Tuck these little pieces down into it. And just stick them both in place for just a minute. Like I said, we'll play with his hair once we're all set. I'm gonna add 2 more pieces right there. I thought about giving him bangs, but I don't think he's gonna need it. So I've got some skinnier pieces, so I'm gonna double them up when I bundle these ones. And you can, if you want really skinny threads, you can always come back in and kind of shred these up before you attach them. I like having different size pieces because then it looks a little more natural. There we go. Twist this top piece again. It doesn't stay super twisted, but you get the idea. Right about there, I think would be good. And again, those little silicone thimbles would come in handy right now. And I know I've got several of them, I just don't know where they're at. I think my fingers are so calloused from hot glue guns anymore that I'm not super concerned. So put that in there, and we'll give him one more little bundle of hair up here. There we go. Just a lot of glue right here. So every time I put my glue down, I'm just kind of making sure that it follows that curve and ends up sort of between where my little circle dots are. Because as long as we keep our spots in between these dots, these are going to be able to sit right over where the rest of it is and have no problem sticking to where they belong. This piece stuck down now that I've got glue all over my fingers. It never fails. That's why I don't like to use super glue, because I end up with crunchy fingers forever after that. But let's shake off any of his excess pieces. I'm gonna trim some of his upper bits that are hanging out. And then before I trim his hair and everything else, I want to get his brim on so I can see if there's any adjustments I need to make. So at this point, I am going to switch to my wood glue instead of my hot glue. When I'm gluing wood to wood, I prefer to use the wood glue over hot glue. I just feel like it holds better. So I'm just putting it kind of where my spots are. Going to set my dots into place on there. We'll give them just a second to dry, because then our little brim is going to go right there on top, and that just creates the perfect little spacer for all of that to sit. Oops, out of shot, my bad. We'll put a little bit of wood glue on the top part, because this is what's going to attach our spacer piece. I'm going to line this part up. I'm gonna look at it from the top, make sure that I've got it up high enough. And I'm gonna let that glue sit for just a minute before I do anything else to him. All right, while I am waiting for the other piece to dry, I went ahead and glued his bird and his nose into place. So I'm gonna set this aside just so that it can dry, and we're gonna work on a little embellishment that's gonna go right there. In your kit, you're going to have this little piece of like fall leaf ribbon, and then you should have at least 2 little squares, one of each of the fabric we used for our pumpkins. Now it's up to you. You can mix and match these. You can use a little bit of both, completely up to you. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna split this piece in one of your rectangles into half. So we should end up with 2 little strips. And I love frayed fabric, so I'm gonna cut just a little piece off my end, maybe. Well, I thought I was going to. Maybe I'm not. I lied, apparently. We're not cutting nothing off the end. I'm gonna trim a piece off my edge like that because that's not gonna work for me, and that's okay. I'm gonna snip it like this though, and I'm gonna tear it in half. There's my frayed edge. I was gonna get it one way or another, and I'm gonna pull these little excess strings off, which create a few more extra frays for me all around my fabric bit. And we're gonna turn this into a bow. Now I promise, if bows are not your jam, that's okay. This one is very lightly bow inspired, we'll call it that. Tear some of these little bits off of here. All right, so I've got my little extra strings pulled off, and I've got that nice little frayed edge, so it's not too perfect. All I'm gonna do is kind of crisscross them like this. Like I said, if you wanted to, you could definitely pull this guy back in here too. In fact, let's go for it. We've got the pieces, let's do it. Snip him in half. Tear him too. Maybe I'll just use one of these. Ooh, no, I'll make it really thin. That's what we'll do. All of these bits and pieces, just kind of pulling some of the fabric out to make those cool little frayed edges. Come out of there. There we go. So yeah, maybe we'll just use one of them in the middle. One of these, and then we've also got our pumpkin leaf piece. It's totally, or not pumpkin, wow, fall leaf ribbon piece. It's up to you if you want to use it or not. I'm gonna trim 2 little sections of it to layer in there. Snip this piece off. And for this one, I'm gonna dovetail my ends too. So snip. I'm gonna fold it back on this side. And snip. Oops, missed my little spot there. And I'm gonna lay those in the middle of all this mix too. And all we're doing is just kind of layering ribbon on top of ribbon so that we have sort of an X shape for the most part in the middle, which is where we're going to tie them all together. So I've got all these sections here. If you've got leftover raffia, you can grab some raffia and put it in there. We're just layering pieces until we decide we've layered enough pieces. Got this one last piece of, I've got a couple little shreds of raffia, so we'll throw this in there too, because why not? I'll trim some of my little excess off on this end. Put that in there. Let's see, what else do we have laying around? I think that'll be plenty. But you should have one piece of jute left from our fabric pumpkins, and we're gonna use this piece to tie this all together. Now it's up to you on how you wanna do it. I'm gonna do it almost, in fact, I might just cut this piece in half because I don't need quite as much as what I have. I'm gonna cut that little section in half, and I'm gonna fold it over, and I'm gonna do like the snake bite loop around it. So I'm gonna pick up all my little pieces here. I'm gonna kind of scrunch them in the middle. This does not have to be perfect by any means, and it's not going to be, which is the best part. Scrunch it. I'm gonna wrap this piece. So I've got my, it's doubled over folded. Oops, over here. Doubled over folded. I've got my 2 little tails. I'm gonna wrap it through that hole at the top. I know there's so much stuff here. And I'm gonna pull it tight. Alternatively, if you have little tiny rubber bands, you could use a tiny rubber band for this too. But I'm gonna pull this down tight like that. So it kind of sinks it all together. It's up to you if you want. You can just add a little dot of hot glue there. I'm going to split my strings like this, wrap them around the back, and pull them back around the front, and then I'm just going to tie a knot. And I'm going to leave them as part of the whole thing, because then there's just one more little frilly something that's hanging out in my little crazy raggy taggy bow here. Pull it over to the middle. Tie one more knot just so it stays stuck in there. So now I've got all these little funky embellishment pieces that are all attached. And this is where we are going to use our button as like a little centerpiece. So what I'm going to do with this part is I am going to hot glue my button in place. So hot glue on the back of there. Stick it just kind of to the middle of my piece here. Maybe I'll make this the top of my bow. So let that stick in there. And now we're going to come back to our little scarecrow friend, and we're going to figure out where exactly we want to put his bow. I'm thinking right here around the little crow, but I don't want to cover all of him up. I feel like over here it looks like there's too much stuff going on. So I think he's going to get his bow just right there. It's another time where we're going to use the hot glue. Pour some on the back of my section here, and I'm just going to plop him right down. Push that down, let that glue set for just a second. Let all these little wild pieces kind of poke out and stick out wherever they're going to. And then I'm going to figure out where exactly I want to stick my little fall charm, because I want it to be kind of part of the bow. Let's see, do I want to stick it all the way under stuff? Well, inadvertently, this had a little bit of glue on it, so it actually kind of stuck in that spot right there. I think I might tuck it up to where it sits on the brim of his hat like this, but otherwise, I don't know, I kind of like it right there. So I'm going to give him just a little dot of hot glue behind it and kind of press it all together. So it's got some of this fabric, all of it sort of sticking in one spot. When in doubt, add some more glue. So we're going to push all these pieces, let that glue set up for just a second. And then I am going to pull some of the ribbon kind of downward, but let me get this button to stick on real good. That's something else I could do if I wanted to. I could take some of that extra jute that I pulled off, and I could have fished it up through the strands of my button, and I still may end up doing that because I can always pop that back off. But we're going to kind of pull our fabric pieces out a little bit so that we can see our little friend peeking from behind back there. And if yours ends up really, really fluffy, again, you can always add some little hot glue spots and kind of tuck it down a little bit so that we can make sure we see our little crow buddy back there. But now we're going to get ready to finish this guy up. So I'm going to take his base piece and I'm going to put wood glue on the back of my main scarecrow shape. I'm going to outline it. And then do some squiggles on the inside. I've got some random threads hanging out in here. It's going to be okay. I'm going to take him and press him down. My biggest goal is I want them to match up, but I want this bottom part to be completely flat all the way across. So let's press him down on there. So I'm going to pick him up. I'm going to kind of adjust his little angles. Make sure he's nice and stuck in place. Give him just a minute for all of that. If for any reason yours is not wanting to stay down stuck, sometimes what I do is put something real heavy on top of it so it presses it down. But I think we're going to be okay with this guy. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little dot of glue into both of the little eye holes and drop his little eyes into place. Make sure I put them the right way so I don't end up making him cross-eyed, although that could be adorable too. Give him his little eyes there. And there is the majority of my little scarecrow. Now I am going to give him just a little bit of a hair trim because once I flip him over and put his little back into place, I am going to glue mine into place. And and all I did was put a little bit of glue on both of the tabs and a little bit in this middle section. And I'm gonna slide that right into there, press it down. All right, so let's pop that piece into place. We're gonna flip him over, and I think he's gonna get just a little teeny tiny bit of a haircut. So I'm gonna set him down on here, and maybe just I don't know, I kind of like his long, oh my goodness. Okay, hear me out. How cute would it be to bundle a little section, like right here, and add just a little tiny bit of ribbon. I know I've been calling him the whole time, but put just a little tiny bit of ribbon on either side and make it like little pigtails. Oh, that'd be adorable. Okay, maybe you're on my next one. I might have to make this guy a friend. He might need a friend. But I think I might trim just a little off this side. And a little right there. And otherwise, I think I'm gonna kind of fray some of this out a little bit. And otherwise, I think our little friend is pretty stinking cute. And there you have it. There's our little trio all propped up on the mantle at our shop. I can't wait to see how you make yours, and I hope you love this little guy.